Heyo everybody, Haku here with my review for actually this week's chapter, Tower of God chapter 435, or season 3, episode 18. Yeah, that's where we are. So I can't believe it doesn't feel like we're 18 chapters into season 3 already. But either way, if you just watched the quick review before this, you know there's a lot more to talk about here, or at least a bit more to talk about here with this one. And generally, I liked it. It didn't have anything that I can point to and be like, oh, I really dislike that, like 2 chapters ago did. But at the same time, there were a lot of things that I like about it, but nothing that I like quite as much, I guess, as 2 chapters ago. But either way, because this is mostly Dang Dang's backstory. Like, to be fair, this chapter was a Dang Dang backstory chapter, essentially. And there are some good and some bad parts of that. But either way, let's just talk about it from the beginning so we don't forget anything. Starting off, Karaka tells Bomb about bugging his pocket, just letting the cat out of the bag there. We have a sibling-student team-up like, okay, you were probably taught the same thing as me, so we need to do this. So I'm excited to see how that's going to go. Now, going into Dang Dang's backstory here, this took up probably most of the chapter. So Dang Dang actually found out the truth about having the Heart of Doom and everything when he was 9 years old. He just overheard Gato talking about it, which makes me think Gato wasn't very good at his whole traitory stuff, because if Dang Dang could just happen to listen in, anybody actually loyal to Yama could have as well. But then again, if Yama believes Gato over them, Gato was his right-hand man, then Gato might have been safe either way, as we've seen with... One thing that I think is well written is something that... Yeah, I think this came up next, so I think I can go ahead and say it. Yeah. Or no, it doesn't. Hold on. I'll talk about that point when I get to it, what I thought was good, really good about this backstory. There's one thing I particularly don't really like about this backstory, and one thing I particularly do really like about this backstory. But, oh, yeah, another thing I thought... So we said he found out when he was 9 years old, but time is kind of screwy in Tower of God, so I'm like... Is it really 9 years old, or is it just the Tower of God approximation of 9 years old? Because we know, like, Andrasi seems like a teenager, maybe, and Andrasi's 300 years old. So time is all screwy. I'm pretty sure Kunaguro Agnes is really old, but I'm not quite sure. So that just has me thinking, does you mean, like, really, really 9 years old here? Or, like, screwy Tower of God 9-year-old equivalent? So it's kind of weird to see, like, real people years being used in Tower of God. It feels like usually they wouldn't even mention a particular year. He would just say, when I was a little kid. It just feels weird to have that number thrown out there. But either way, his real parents were people from Paul's group, because they said canine people on the outside, and Paul's group are the only canine people on the outside that I can think of. So that's where his real parents were from. But Gato lied to Yama and said that he had a kid with a human on the outside and he wanted his kid to come live at the cage with him because he's half canine person. So that's how he ended up there under Gato's watchful eye. But Gato told Dang Dang, this is the part that I particularly like about this backstory. Gato told Dang Dang that he had the heart of Yama's enemy, so he couldn't tell anyone. And that's a very good way of writing it to be where Dang Dang knew about this all along, but Dang Dang couldn't tell anybody about it because whoever he told could tell Yama, and then Yama would kill him. Or if he himself told Yama, or if Yama just found out, Yama would kill him. So that's a really particularly good thing about this backstory, is that even if he found out that Gato was sketchy, he couldn't tell anybody that Gato was sketchy. And it kind of works well with his demeanor that we've seen so far, where Dang Dang doesn't act as kind of cheerful and naive at times as Louis. He's a lot more sort of sad and brooding and feel like he knows more than he lets on, because he did know more than he lets on. So I actually really think that that part of the backstory is quite well written. It's something that you didn't even really need to have thrown in. I mean, you don't really even need to have this whole backstory, but you didn't need to have that detail thrown in. But thinking about it more and more, it's a really interesting detail that adds some real logic to the story. And it's always good to add something to the story that makes it feel like it has real world logic where you're like, oh yeah, if I were in that situation, I'd be screwed too. You can't tell anybody. So I love that it was written to where it makes sense. And that's something, again, that I brought up with Chang's whole story. Chang's story makes sense, which is something I really appreciate. But from there on, we have Ding Ding talking about how he learned transformation faster and younger than other canine people, and because of that, Yama thought he was like the hope for the next generation. And he even brings up that even though he knew it was all a lie, he still kept training to get stronger because Yama would praise him and stuff, and he wanted to train to be stronger for Yama because he enjoyed being praised by him. And I actually think that's a cool little detail too. Now that I'm thinking about it, because it actually makes Yama seem like maybe a nicer person, but it adds just more layers to Ding Ding's character, because to be fair, I've been a bit critical of Ding Ding not being a very well developed or very well written character so far, at least. We've been told a lot about him, but we've never actually gotten to see it in practice. So I actually like that this adds something where, like, why did he keep training to get stronger? Oh, it's because Yama was one person who was genuinely giving him praise, so he was working to get stronger for the person giving him praise. And of course he talks about becoming friends with Louie, how the story led to them both becoming regulars and everything. And the one thing about this backstory, now I said there was a thing I particularly liked and a thing I particularly didn't like. The bomb stuff feels so stupid and forced. The bomb stuff where he's like, but he was the first to reach out a hand to me. He is barely known Bomb. It feels so forced. And where this was done wrong, that it was done right in the past, I brought up in the reaction that this story is eerily similar to Horyang and Kasano's in some ways, about him being like a special person raised for a special purpose, but head-on screwed with fate and had him and his friend go and climb the tower. And that's really similar to Horyang's story with Kasano. And at the same time, it's also very similar to Haku's story, where he has this important, powerful person's body part within him, and it gives them special abilities that other people don't have, and it causes them to grow a certain way. But I'm like, why even bother with this story that's kind of like both of those when we could spend time developing Horyang more, do something with Horyang, or developing Haku more, do something with Haku. So that is my negative with this, that the bomb stuff feels a bit forced. And it's like, the stuff was done right in the past. I kind of got off track, because the way that Bomb is helping Dang Dang, and it feels like Bomb barely knows Dang Dang, and yet Dang Dang's like, but we've been through so much, he was the first to hold out his hand to me, when really they don't know anything about each other. That was done really, really well with Haku. Bomb and Haku got separated from everybody. The Floor of Death had been sort of built up and hyped up for a long time, and Bomb was alone with no one else on the Floor of Death to survive with, but with Haku. And that let him and Haku develop a really cool friendship. I really like the relationship between Bomb and Haku. So it's something that was done really well in the past, and it made us as an audience, we got to have a reason to care about Haku, because this guy helped Bomb out when Bomb was all alone. And so now when he finds out this backstory, the same time Bomb is finding out his own backstory, and then Bomb decides, okay, I'm going to work with you and help you, and Haku decides, I'm going to work with Bomb and continue to help Bomb. It really makes you feel for both of the characters and their relationship, because we've gotten to see their relationship build and develop. And with Dang Dang, that hasn't happened. Bomb just showed up and he's like, oh god, the shining angel. And the panel was so cheesy for it too that they showed. So that's my one negative with this backstory. And it's not even like saying, oh, see, you can't build these connections between characters. He totally can. He built an extremely similar story with Bomb and Haku, and he did it well there. It's just, this is like a less good Haku. Dang Dang is a less good Haku. That's just where I'm at right now. But we find out another interesting bit of information for Paul, that Yama kept Doom alive, because I mean, he's like, well, if he's Yama's biggest enemy, why not just kill him? But Yama kept Doom alive to give his power to some of the canine people, which would include the leaders, and that's why the leaders are strong enough to be leaders, and it includes some other canine people, I believe they mentioned. So obviously, of course, Dang Dang has it because he has the heart. But the way they mention it, they said some of the other canine people who can use transformation. So I don't know if that means that transformation specifically is a Baylord family thing, and the reason that the others can use transformation is because they have Doom's power, or if canine people just have transformation, but Doom's power was given to some of them who can use transformation. So the sentence is worded in a way where it could mean either thing. Now I think the more exciting of the two actually is if transformation is something that is sort of a Baylord family thing, and Paul gave his powers to some of his subordinates, which would explain how, like, those two brothers could use transformation. So Paul gave his power to some people, but Yama, being selfish, wouldn't give any of his own power, so instead he gives Doom's family to people, and the canine people who can transform are people who have a part of Doom's power, which would mean that Varagarv is involved in that too, since Varagarv just learned transformation. But again, it could be just the total other thing where all canine people can use it, and it's just some of the canine people who can use it were given Doom's power to augment that, I guess. Gato knew about this, and because of it, Gato's kind of crazy. He feels like he's destined to awaken Doom because his power comes from him. Dang Dang has his nice little I want to live moment, but after the cheesy bomb stuff, I was like, I'm not fully invested in Dang Dang. Like I said, there are things I like about the story, things I dislike about it, but I'm not entirely invested in Dang Dang when I'm like, we could have done without the Dang Dang story and still gotten to the same place in the arc somehow or another, and been able to develop some other side characters who are kind of MIA right now. But from there, Kun and Rak, we get to see them. They storm the central area. I actually really like this. Kun using the Firefish to revive the fourth leader. He has a random healing power-up now. And again, there's good and bad. I like the random healing power-up. I like the Firefish power, actually. And some people were saying that Yeon Woon's flame mixed with the sweet fish he had before, and that's how the flame and the sweet fish became the fire fish that he can use now, which I think is cool because, again, it brings in sweet fish that was something from a while back. So that, in a way, is cool, but I kind of wish it was given to someone other than Kun Agro-Agnes. Because, and I've seen other people bring up this same exact point, where Kun worked really hard and trained and faced his fears, his sworn enemy, in order to get his ice powers. So I'd love to see him use all of his ice powers to an extent before picking up a new power-up. It feels like we haven't even explored the ice powers basically at all because he's been asleep for so long, and yet we're throwing in a new power when we haven't even fully explored the ice powers that he really worked for. So I actually think it would have been nice to give the Firefish power to somebody else and to let that other character have that development. So it's not bad on its own, but I think it could have been used better. But they revive the fourth leader, and the fourth leader is actually badass. I really like the fourth leader. When they were like all hunched over or whatever, I was like, their design looks like every other member of this arc pretty much. But when they got up and we got to see their face and they started fighting and their transformation actually looks pretty cool, I was like, okay, I actually dig this fourth leader. I actually think they're really cool. Now, are they going to be that useful? Who knows? We know that Gato said they're very strong. We know that I believe Jordan also said they're very strong. And that Gato said, the only reason I took them down is because I gained their trust and then betrayed them. But at the same time, Colden was the 6th leader, and Colden just got absolutely demolished by Paul, and Doom's probably a lot stronger than Paul. So you would figure if the 6th leader got destroyed that easily, I don't know how much help the 4th leader can be against Gato and Paul both working together. Two incredibly strong characters from what we've seen both working together, because Paul is just washing people, just wiping them out, and Gato took out Kanzone, who should be the 3rd strongest, you would think, because that's the ranking. So from there, the very end, we get to see Yuan Sung and Evan Khel again. Don't know about bringing them back into the arc this early. I felt like we had a lot going on already, so to add even more into that is maybe a little bit much. I don't mind seeing this. I'm just saying maybe it should have waited till a little bit later on in the arc. Maybe we're jumping so far away to this a bit too soon. But we see Yuan Sung and Evan Khel, and they mention, do you think they'll help us? Will they seem to like Bam and Ha Jin Sung? So I actually am not 100% sure on who they is referring to. I don't know if it's the canine people or if it's somebody, because we know Evan Khel was away gaining allies, or if Evan Khel has some allies and maybe those allies are with them. So who knows what kind of cool allies that Evan Khel could like bust out right here. But they meet with some high rankers that are described as Blue Hole. Now, Blue Hole means that they're so ancient, or their actual power level is so hard to determine, that they don't have like an actual rank. It just refers to rankers who don't necessarily have an exact rank, because you don't really know where to rank them. You just know that they're strong, but you can't pin down exactly what their influence or power is. So that's very interesting that there are characters that are really mysterious like that, and it makes me wonder if Jin Sung is similar. But this is the first time we've seen Blue Hole even used to describe characters. And the character with them, I think the Blue Hole was just referring to Khel Hellam, but it could be referring to both of them. The character with them has red hair. I know that you can't just go around saying, oh, everybody with red hair, it might be a red witch, but they're with an FUG elder, they have red hair, so it's got me thinking maybe they're a red witch. I don't know, though. But it's our first time seeing an FUG elder. Their name is Khel Hellam, and I actually really, really like their design. I really love Khel Hellam's design, and I like the red hair girl, I'm guessing, with the Pokeball designs on her outfit. I like both of them. Their designs are really cool, and like I said, I like the design of the 4th leader. So we have some designs that I really like in this chapter. And now that I'm talking about it, I was saying, I think I like 433 more, but there are a lot of things I do like about this chapter. Either way, though, in the blog we have some more information that's somewhat useful, but Siu says that Karaka actually does still want the thorn, and Karaka doesn't necessarily like Bam, but even though Karaka doesn't necessarily like Bam, Karaka likes their master. They like Ha Jin Sung, and they want to protect Jin Sung's legacy. So Karaka working to protect and take care of Bam is more about wanting to protect Jin Sung's legacy than it is to protect Bam himself. They don't really care about Bam themselves, but they care about what Bam means to Jin Sung, because they care about Jin Sung. So I think that's cool. And he also mentions that this is kind of something to just give away in the blog post, but he says that Khel Hellam is a big bad. So the big bad of this arc, just a big bad in general, but they say it's the first big bad from FUG side, so I guess from Zahard's side you can say Zahard himself is definitely a big bad, and you could probably say that Calavan is a big bad. So it's interesting that Khel Hellam is being held in that kind of regard on the FUG side of things. So it seems like the other Slayers, at least that we know of for now, like Yama or anything, they aren't big bads. Doom wasn't talked about in this way. So it seems like they aren't like big bad, mastermind, grand evil characters. But Khel Hellam is, apparently. Khel Hellam is a big bad from the FUG side of things, which is very interesting. So yeah, some thoughts as a whole. I'm not a big fan of Deng Deng's story, I'll be honest. There are things I do really like about it, like I brought up, but in general I'm not a big fan of it. I just feel like it's not a bad story in a vacuum, just taking that story in itself. If we had not seen Horiang's, or if we had not seen Hockney's before to compare it to, it's not bad just looking at it alone, but putting it in context, it just makes me think like it's not really necessary, and that we could have just used the screen time to develop more of the side characters. So it's not that I like hate the story or anything. I think it's okay. I just feel like maybe the story could have been done differently to benefit more characters. But it's fine just on its own. And also, there are things that I really, really like about this chapter, particularly the new fourth leader in Yama's group. I really like them. Just from the little bit we've seen of them, I really like them. And I really, really like Khel Hellam. If they are a big bad, I'm totally fine, all in on it, because they're really cool looking and they seem really cool. And we know they're an elder in FUG, not a slayer, but an elder. So yeah, I'm totally in on Khel Hellam as a big villain. And I'm excited to see what it means for somebody from FUG to be a big villain like this. So yeah, I'm excited for that character and what they could do in the future. I'd give the chapter 7 big bads out of 10. Maybe I'm underrating it a little bit, but it was mostly just dang backstory. So yeah, like I brought up, there are just things that I really liked about this chapter and the story that was told here and what it could mean for the future. And there are some things I don't really like, some things I think aren't being done to perfection, or aren't being done that well in sort of in sort of practice or application. I think some things aren't maybe being done that well, but in general, I feel like I had a lot more positive to say just listening to myself talk through this chapter than I did for the past two. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better, it's just my opinions on everything, but I really liked a lot of the stuff we got here. So, yeah, that's it for this chapter. Thank you for watching the video. Like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this chapter, what you thought of my thoughts on it and all that. Subscribe for more. Tower of God, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated on stuff for the channel. And if you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us there, just ask and I can give you a link, free and open for anyone, and we can talk there. Also, I just started a Patreon page. I'm not really doing anything with it yet. People who become patrons are going to get to vote. I'm going to add a new weekly series to the channel, and you're going to get to vote on what the new weekly series is going to be, and give me you're going to give me your suggestions, and then I'll put those up to a vote, and whatever wins, I'll start doing weekly. And then when we finish with that, I can do something else. But yeah, it's not really fully up yet. I'm going to do a big video on its own, like a channel update thing where I talk about it. But if for whatever reason you want to get in on it early or something, I'll probably put a link to it in the description. So just check down there. And of course, links to the Twitter and stuff are in the description too. So, as always. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you want to check that ahead of time, I'll try to remember to put a link to it in the description. But I'm pretty sure it's just patreon.com/Haku with Haku of the Tubes. Probably. That's because that's general branding. Just I'm gonna use it for everything likely. But yeah, that's it. Turned into a long video actually. Thank you for watching. I already said my like and comment stuff. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.